he said that I had a strong feeling that my next child is going to be a daughter and she will be born after I'm gone. And subhanAllah, he was actually correct. He was in his family. His parents were Muslims. Him and his wife were Muslim. His wives were Muslims. And his grandchildren were Muslims. And for anyone who was here during the Halaqah of Zubair, will remember that Zubair married Asma, and that their child was Abdullah ibn Zubair. Like, yeah, this of all this of Muslims, and that that their household of Abu Bakr was a household of Iman. Everyone in his family, his household was known for having great faith, and they were all Muslims in his household. Prophet says of his companions that the best of you in Jahiliyyah are the best of my companions when you embrace Islam. And even before Islam, Abu Bakr was companions of Quraysh. He was of the Banu Tamim clan, and he had a very high position in society, where people who had strong roles in society would manage things. Khalid bin Walid would manage the affairs of war. Abu Sufyan was the unofficial leader at times, and Abu Bakr was someone who took charge of debts and blood money. So he would handle these kinds of disputes. And there were several activities that Abu Bakr preoccupied himself with before he became Muslim. One thing that Abu Bakr was very famous for was that he was the foremost genealogist of his period. He knew all the family lines, the bloodlines, and the history of the Arabs, of all the tribes in Arabia. And this was something he was well known for, and he was like the expert in this field. And this knowledge, in fact, is something that he later took and used for Allah and used to benefit the Muslims. He was known to do before he was his business. He acquired a lot of wealth, and he was known for his business trips around the peninsula, and he obviously met a lot of people. And what's very interesting about his business is that he never served. His nobility and his honesty and the way he conducted his dealings was such that people came to him to do business. They wanted to do business with him, and money just came to him because of his amazing qualities. SubhanAllah. That doesn't happen to me, guys. But and another thing about his life before Islam is that he loved Abu Bakr, one of the best people. There's two reasons to respect someone at this time: because of their nobility and because of their lineage. And he had the best lineage, and he had the best of character, and the best he was one of the most noble people. For using his wealth in the way of the needy and for the poor. And he was known to treat everyone very well. And this is why it was not just like the wealthy and the respected high-class people who looked up to him, but even the poor were loved Abu Bakr. And this is something, obviously, that he shares in common with Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And what's very interesting about the characteristics of Abu Bakr before Islam and after Islam is that he was very, very similar to Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam never drank alcohol before he received revelation, and similarly, neither did Abu Bakr. He came upon a very drunk man, and he saw that man almost contemplating eating his own feces, and he always had this deep-seated contempt for alcohol. He had no interest in it. And similarly to Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he never ever worshipped an idol. His father took him to a young age, and he told him to go worship. And Abu Bakr, he said, why would I worship an idol? It's inanimate. So he went up to the idol, and he said, okay, I'm hungry. Feed me. Nothing happened. He said, okay, I don't have clothes. I'm naked. Clothe me. Nothing happened. And he threw it at the idol. The idol fell over. He said, and to himself, he's thinking, why would I worship this idol? This is an inanimate object. This isn't like my creator. And very early on, he decided he wasn't going to worship idols. And subhanAllah, it's common with Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Just as the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was protected and guided into being a prophet, it's almost as if Abu Bakr was guided and protected into being the best of companions. As if it's as if he was guided into being the best friend and the closest companion of the Prophet ﷺ. And it's very crazy how he was how well he lived his life even before Islam. It's almost as if he was already fine tuned. Like I said earlier, the best of you in Jahiliyyah are going to be the best in Islam. This is for Abu Bakr. And just another thing, just as they were, like I was saying, they were very similar in their actions. They were very similar in their values. They had very similar characteristics. They were both honest, open, generous people, both Abu Bakr and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it's not a surprise that even before, when they were before revelation, that were very close friends. They lived characteristics, and they were like the other people of the time. SubhanAllah. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq became Muslim when he was 38. This was the start of something very, very like magical and amazing for Abu Bakr. This was the start of a new blessed life. This was the start of something that he'd been searching for his entire life. You know, when he always had an interest in religion. When he went around the peninsula traveling, doing his business, he always was very interested to hear about the religion of other people. And he always had a particular interest in that of the Christians. The Christians being people who worship one God. And the concept of one God was something that had always attracted him. So when he heard two people one day talking about a prophet who was coming, he heard two people talking about how that the Arabs were due a prophet, that the world at this stage was in need of a prophet, and that there were signs. And he heard these rumors, so he decided to go and ask Waraqah ibn Nawfal, who was known to be a pious person who was very knowledgeable about religion at the time. So Waraqah told Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, coming, and that I know about these things, and this prophet is going to be of the best of lineage, and the Quraysh have the best of lineage, so the prophet is going to come from Quraysh. So Abu Bakr, he was almost expecting a prophet. About the prophet who is going to come is that this is a person who enjoys good and forbids evil. This is a person who is very just, who does things that are just and does no injustice. This is one of the reasons why Abu Bakr believed early on. And what's very special about Abu Bakr is that when Prophet Muhammad presented the message of Islam to people at the time, no one heard Islam and immediately went in. They always hesitated. They had to think about it. And he immediately embraced it. He immediately became a Muslim. SubhanAllah. Sorry. And what's very and the thing is, this Prophet ﷺ loved Abu Bakr very much for this, because what he said was, when I came to you, to the people, and I told you about Allah, you called me a liar and you disbelieved. But later on, you became my companions. But the thing about Abu Bakr is, when I told him about Islam, he said, verily, he has spoken the truth. And he instantly embraced Islam, and he consoled the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and he spent his life and his wealth for the sake of Allah and for his friend. And this is why you should never hurt my friend. And he said this twice. You should never hurt my friend, my companion. He said this to all his companions. Don't bother my friend. He said this twice about Abu Bakr. And he had a very special place in the standing of Muhammad ﷺ. Now, people say, we're unsure who the first Muslim was. People say it was Ali ibn Abi Talib, people say it was Zayd ibn Haritha, people say it was Khadija. So what the scholars do to settle this dispute is that they say that Ali ibn Abi Talib was the first child to embrace Islam. Zayd ibn Haritha was the first slave to embrace Islam. Khadija Anha was the first woman to embrace Islam, and Abu Bakr was the first man to embrace Islam. Now, the thing about, sorry, the guys who were here last week, this is, I'm fine, it's difficult to rush through, so you're hearing a lot of this, you've heard this before, but, the best qualities of Abu Bakr when he embraced Islam was his dawah. And this is one of the things he did best. He was probably the greatest da'i of the time after the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is because that Abu Bakr understood that Islam isn't a religion of stagnation, and it's an action, and it's a struggle, and it's a complete faith, and it requires you sacrificing everything. It requires you sacrificing what you own. It requires you sacrificing your soul. And this is something that Abu Bakr understood very well, that if he was going to be a good Muslim, he had to give it everything he had. And he used his high place in society to channel his dawah. And it's because everyone loved him, that, and specifically it was the intellectuals who loved him, because he was of them. He was the wealthy, noble person of a higher class. It's because of this that a lot of intellectuals and people of higher standing embraced Islam. And in fact, it was before, but a lot of the 10 companions promised paradise came from the dawah of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Zubair embraced Islam because of Abu Bakr. Uthman embraced Islam because of Abu Bakr. Talha embraced Islam because of Abu Bakr. Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah embraced Islam because of Abu Bakr. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas embraced Islam because of Abu Bakr. And Abdul Rahman ibn Auf embraced Islam because of Abu Bakr. And there are countless more companions who embraced Islam because of Abu Bakr. And they were like the best of companions. And they all came from the dawah of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. He was one of the best da'is of his time. And each one of these people went on to give like dawah and spread Islam. And so their dawah and his dawah came from Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the message of Islam obviously came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can see there's a chain of Islam spreading from Allah to the messenger to these great companions, and it's actually amazing. He didn't just, go after converting his friends, but he also went around and he made sure that his household was in order, and he made sure that his household were the best of Muslims, and he obviously gave his household love. This is one of the trials that this is the last part we got to last week, and then I can move on to what I had prepared for this week. Sorry. So one of the early trials that Abu Bakr went through as a Muslim was that he was obviously, him and other Muslims were very susceptible to persecution and to tribulations and whatnot. And it was obviously the weak, the slaves, the poor who were more likely to be persecuted. But if you were upper class, and especially if you're close to the Prophet Abu Bakr, and especially if you were as open with your religion as Abu Bakr was, you still got persecuted. And Abu Bakr always urged the Prophet that we have to openly preach. We have to tell everyone we're Muslim. He always urged the Prophet that this is something we have to do. So it came that one day, at a time in which there were only 38 Muslim males, the Muslims all went out into the masjid, into their clans, and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq stood up in front of all the Muslims and all the non-Muslims and the people of Quraysh, and he gave what was the first sermon of Islam, the first khutbah of Islam. And he invited people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to his messenger and to Islam. People of Quraysh didn't sit idly by. They heard this person, inviting people to a new God, and they immediately rushed them. And they rushed all the Muslims, and they started beating them, and they started attacking them. And Abu Bakr got beaten so bad that he almost died, and a lot of people thought he was going to die. And it was specifically Utbah ibn Rabi'ah who attacked him and trampled on him. And eventually, the clansmen of Muhammad intervened and helped the Prophet. And similarly, Banu Taym, the clan of Abu Bakr, came in and they intervened eventually, and they told people back off. They pushed people away, and they picked up Abu Bakr and they carried him home. And they were very sure that he was going to die. And they announced to the masjid, they came back and announced that Abu Bakr dies, they were going to come back and we're going to kill Utbah ibn Rabi'ah, because they knew that he was the foremost of those attacking Abu Bakr. And at the end of the day, after a long day of being unconscious and being close to death, he woke up. And what's he going to do? He's just woken up and he's so close to death. What would we do in this scenario? He said, how is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? How is my companion? How is my friend? How is he doing? He didn't concern himself own well-being. He wanted to know how the Prophet was doing. SubhanAllah. And his fans were saying, concern yourself with yourself. They reproached him. You're you're dying. Concern yourself with yourself. Stop asking about someone else. And they told his mother, Khair, give him food and drink and take care of him. And then they left. But as soon as they left, he said, okay, how's my companion? How's the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? I need to know how he is. And she didn't know, because in the confusion, they'd run away. No one knew what was going on. It was like a riot out there. So what he asked al-Khair, his mother, to do was to go to Jamil ibn al-Khattab, the sister of Umar ibn al-Khattab, and she went to him and asked how was the Prophet. And Jamil, she didn't trust al-Khair, because al-Khair at the time was not a Muslim. So she pretended not to know, and she said, I don't know who Muhammad is, I don't know who Abu Bakr is, but I'll come meet your son to console him, because I know he's injured. And then when she came to him, Jamil, Abu Bakr asked her for news of the Prophet. I don't want to speak in front of al-Khair, but Abu Bakr said, this is my mother, you can trust her. And so Jamil answered, and she said that Muhammad is in the house of al-Arqam. And also, when seeing Abu Bakr in this state, Jamil got very angry. And she cursed the people who had transgressed against them and transgressed against the Muslims. And these people who had disbelieved in Allah, she asked Allah to punish them for doing this to Abu Bakr and to the Muslims. And after this, Abu Bakr, he made a pledge that he was going to eat or drink until he saw Prophet Muhammad alive and well. He's in this horrible condition, and all he's concerned about is his companion. And so Jamil and al-Khair had to carry him. They had to bring al-Arqam, and he's in this horrible condition. So it's obviously very very difficult for him. And he arrived, and Prophet Muhammad and the other people were in a better condition than Abu Bakr. And when his companion, he rushed over to him and he kissed him, and he was very concerned and moved by the state he was in. And Abu Bakr knew that Prophet Muhammad was very concerned for him, and he said that I'm okay, but the pain I feel is on my face from where Utbah that had hurt me. And he called him al-Fasiq, which means a wrongdoer. That's what he called Utbah ibn Rabi'ah. But he said that my faithful mother is here with me, and will you please give her dawah, and will you make dua for her, because she's not yet Muslim. And Prophet then he made dua for her, and he gave her dawah, and he invited her to Islam, and she embraced Islam then and there. And what's very lessons from this trial of the Muslims. Number one, the bravery of Abu Bakr and the openness of his religion, and how much he wanted to spread Islam was very very strong and very very honest and sincere. And what another thing we can learn from this is Muhammad had for Prophet Muhammad. The only thing he ever concerned himself on that day was how the Prophet was doing, and this was the thing that took up all of his mind's contemplations. And another lesson we can learn is the wisdom of Jamil. She didn't know al-Khair, she didn't know if she was a Muslim, and she acted very wisely in Bakr. And this is a lesson obviously we can take from that. We need to be wise when we're dealing with people who we can't potentially trust. And this is, I think, one of the most important lessons from this entire event. Abu Bakr, obviously, he suffered a lot this day. He tried to, give dawah to the people, invite them to Islam, but all that happened was that he was attacked. And what's good that came out of this is that his mother became Muslim. Obviously, one of the people who you're most close to and love and respect is your mother. And so what we see is that if you go through a trial for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if you endure for him, he's going to reward you. And this was the reward of Abu Bakr. His mother became Muslim on this day. And another note of Abu Bakr during his life. During the Khalifa of Ali ibn Abi Talib, anhu, raised them in a sermon. People, the brave, and I said, "You are Ali." They said, "You are Ali. You are leader. You are the bravest person." And I said, "No, the bravest Sahaba and the companion I ever saw was Abu Bakr as-Siddiq anhu." Said that there was a servant in the household of Fir'aun. And this man kept his Islam to himself, and he was secretly a Muslim in what was a really dangerous place to be a Muslim, the household of Fir'aun. The Fir'aun being a person who would go around persecuting and killing Muslim infants. And Ali compared him to this man. And he said, furthermore, he told people examples of the bravery of Abu Bakr. He told them that the most open Muslim, the most honest with his faith. And when in the Battle of Badr, when there was a command center for the Prophet Muhammad, and they needed volunteers. Who's going to protect the Prophet Muhammad? And this is the most dangerous job, protecting the leader. And the only person who volunteered to protect the Prophet Muhammad at that stage was Abu Bakr. When a bunch of the Quraysh were attacking Prophet Muhammad, it was only Abu Bakr who would stand up and defend Muhammad. It was only him in the early days who had the bravery and the strength of Islam to go out there and defend the Prophet Muhammad. And another occasion, there was a person, and this is the worst beating he ever took was when this terrible person came up behind the Prophet while he was praying. He took some cloth, tied it around his neck, and started choking him in the middle of prayer. Abu Bakr and Siddiq ran in, and he tackled him and pushed that man away. And he said, "Are you going to attack a man just because he says La ilaha illallah? Are you going to attack a man just because he believes that there is only one God? Like, is this why you're going to attack this man?" He said, "Woe to you, people." And as Ali is telling his people the story of the bravery of Abu Bakr, Ali's beard became soaked with tears, and all the people became soaked with tears. The strength of the Islam of Abu Bakr was inspiring people decades later. The strength in which he defended the Prophet and his love of the Prophet and his love of the Deen was inspiring people decades later and making them cry. And what Ali said was that of Abu Bakr is better than the life of that man in the household of Fir'aun. That man was a great man, but the thing about Abu Bakr is his religion was open and he didn't hide it from anybody. And just a few more words on Abu Bakr and how Abu Bakr was the best of companions. And it wasn't just because of his bravery and because of his iman, but he was the most knowledgeable of the companions of Prophet Muhammad. He had the most experience, the most faith, and he devoted all his knowledge, his wealth, his time to Muhammad. When he became Muslim, he scaled down his business and he did everything he had to support the Prophet. And this is why the Prophet said of Abu Bakr that merciful of my ummah to my ummah. He is the one who is most merciful to my ummah. Now, I'll talk a second about Abu Bakr and how he was. Now, originally, of the Muslims, there were about 7 Muslims who would be openly Muslim. Like, there was more than 7 Muslims, but only 7. And of those were obviously Muhammad and Abu Bakr. And then obviously there was also Bilal, Muslims who was openly Muslim. There was other Muslims, but these were the 7 who were open. 7 underwent a lot of persecution. And none so more than Bilal, having been one of the poorest. Prophet Muhammad and Abu Bakr had protection from their clans, but Bilal, being a poor slave, had no protection. And because of this, a lot of the early Muslims who were openly Muslim, they actually uttered words of disbelief. And when you're under persecution and you're being attacked and you're going to die, utter words of disbelief. But Bilal, this wasn't something that he was prepared to do. This wasn't something that he ever did. It was uttered words of disbelief. And of the people who didn't have protection, Bilal was the only one who didn't utter words of disbelief. Umayyah ibn Khalaf. And he was one day, and I think we all know the story, but I'll go over it again, is that he was starved and he was beaten and he was put on the hot sand on his back and a large rock was placed on his chest. And Umayyah ibn Khalaf, he threatened Bilal and then he tried to bribe him into leaving Islam, and then eventually he just did this sand and he put a large rock on his chest. And he said, say that you worship Allah and Allah, who were 2 of the pagan gods at the time. I remove you from the state. But the only word he kept saying was Ahad, 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 Ahad. One. There's only one God, and I'm not going to worship your gods, obviously. And Abu Bakr came and he saw what was going on. And Umayyah said, you're the one who corrupted him, so are you going to save him? And Abu Bakr's he didn't hesitate. There's 2 different accounts. Either he traded one of his slaves for Bilal, or he bought him for a large amount of money, and he set him free. And just a few words on Bilal, and then I'll go back to Abu Bakr, is that Bilal, he became one of the closest companions of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. After this, he closely adhered to the Prophet, he kept close to him. Prophet said of Bilal one day that I can hear his footsteps in paradise. He was one of the best companions. And he loved Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam like very, 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 very much, more so than a lot of companions. And it's one of his defining traits. And after Muhammad died, he tried to give adhan, and he was obviously known as being the first muezzin of Islam, and like he was known for his beautiful voice. And he tried to give adhan after the death of Muhammad. When we came to Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, he couldn't say it. He couldn't say the name of his companion. It was too upsetting for him, and he didn't give it adhan for years after that. It was only on 2 occasions after the death of Muhammad that he could work up the strength to give the adhan again and mention his companion who was now dead. And this occasion was that he gave adhan again was at the conquest of Al-Aqsa. Al-Aqsa under Umar ibn al-Khattab, all the companions were peasant. They were all peasant, and they were all here for the conquest of the place where Muhammad had committed his night journey. And this was a very special and magical and amazing day for them, you know. And all the companions went to Umar and said, "Look, this is a very special day. Can you ask Bilal to give us the adhan one more time?" And so Umar went to Bilal and asked him to give the adhan one more time. And Bilal, in front of all the companions of the Prophet, gave the adhan one more time. And when he, to these people, their beards had been black in Al-Aqsa, and their beards were now grey. And this Umar was there, Khalid bin Walid was there, like all the important companions were there, and their beards became drenched in tears when they heard the adhan, which they had not heard since the time of the Prophet Muhammad. And this was very special because Bilal, after this day, had just given adhan in the 3rd holiest site of Islam. He had given adhan in Medina, and on this day he had given adhan in Al-Aqsa. Last time he ever gave adhan, and just so you know, after the death of Muhammad, he tried to live in Medina, but and he asked his companion, "Can I leave Medina? It's too upsetting for me to be here." Abu Bakr said, "I want you to stay with me. Don't leave me. You're my close companion. I love you." And Bilal said, "If you feed me for the sake of Allah, then let me go, because I can't stay here anymore." And I remember in the life of the Prophet, he told me that jihad is the best of deeds, and I want to go to Asham and I want to fight because I can't stay here anymore. And so Abu Bakr, with a heavy heart, he let Bilal go. And after the death of Abu Bakr, Bilal came back one time, and he visited the grave of the Prophet Muhammad, and he was so upset, he just laid down by the grave. And that's where Hassan and Hussein found him, and they said, "Oh Bilal, will you not give us an adhan one last time?" And this was the last adhan of Bilal. And the only reason he did it is because it was the grandchildren of his friend who were asking him, so he had to give the adhan one last time. So he went to the masjid, and he gave the same adhan that he had given during the life of the Prophet. People heard it, Medina erupted. Like everyone came out of the houses, the men and the women and children who had heard this adhan during the life of the Prophet were hearing it again. And they like for a second, like people might even have thought that Muhammad was alive again, because this adhan was only associated with Muhammad. And people came out and they started erupting in tears, and they were so upset at hearing this again. It was like so subhanAllah, so magical and upsetting for them. And this was the last adhan that to the people of Medina and to the Ummah. And later on, he was dying. When he died, his wife said, "What grief?" She said, "Oh, what grief? You're dying." And he said, No, I'm dying, because tonight when I die, I'm going to see my companion, other companions, small again." And I just wanted to say those words on on Bilal just because it came up. And Bilal died with no children, but his inheritance was the adhan. What he left behind for the ummah is the adhan, and the adhan is the sunnah. And every day we recognize his sunnah when we do the adhan. There's a bit more like can I keep going?
Yeah. Good time for Maghrib.
It's time for Maghrib. Yeah,
Good.
it's fast. Yeah, I can finish it in about 10, 15 minutes, or we can just do Maghrib. 10, 15 minutes to finish.
Yeah.
Let's finish.
Let's do Maghrib first,
Yeah.
for those who need to go
Yeah.
back to work or something, and then the rest of us who can stay, we'll stay. We'll finish with you, inshallah.
Okay.
I was gonna make it on now.
Yeah. Big responsibility, boys.